Hey guys, and welcome to the Daniel and Mark show. This week we've got Daniel and Mark. Hey, this podcast this Sunday is brought to you by Hardcore Headstart, made possible by the legends at Hardcore. Um, that was a strange intro, wasn't it?
It was a bit different. It was a bit different, but I don't mind it.
Let's roll with it. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, fucking
So
hell.
on this week's podcast, Daniel and I were sort of talking earlier, and we thought that an interesting topic could be talking about like mastering your craft. So whatever you decide to pursue, um, and focus all your energy into, you can then become the best in that field, and how that sort of spills over and attracts sort of other people that are the best in their field. Um, but before going into that, let's have like a little cheeky sort of left wing thing. So the crypto markets, we've had like a little correction, like cheeky sort of 20% correction. Where do you think the market is in terms of like just the short term?
You got me. Well done, sir. Well done, sir. Well done.
Oops.
In regards to kind of market leader being Bitcoin, which is kind of essentially the rest of the crypto market is correlated to that, including NFTs from our last podcast, people. It's all predicated upon whatever Bitcoin is doing. Listen, the crypto market and most markets in general don't give you the chance to sell the top twice. So it's never going to go back to all-time highs twice. If it goes back there, it's usually going to make new highs and go higher. So what we're seeing in this little correction now is probably just shaking out as many people as possible. I've got a really good mark on my chart because we're technical analysts of around, what is that level? 52, 53 potentially, pulling all the way back to there, and it would still be okay. So I know for a lot of people that's going to mean absolutely nothing because it's very, very complicated. But for the people who have any idea what we're talking about, I think everything still looks really, 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 really good in our opinion. And there's nothing to be really concerned about.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it all looks pretty good, and for a lot of the meme coin investors that are looking outside like Shuba and like a couple other ones, if it's something like I'm still a little like scared to invest into, but like if you were ever gonna invest into these meme coins, after the 50% correction, now could be a time to put in like just the very like little nibble, like lunch money maybe.
You
But
building on last week's podcast, you are a degenerate.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, don't touch these meme coins, don't touch NFTs, but put your money on Shiba. Nah, all right, that's good insight. So this is not like a crypto or an investing potty, but I thought it'd be good to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. Anyway, well, what are your thoughts the same, or are you seeing anything a little bit different?
Yeah, I think I found it really interesting to just use Twitter for market sentiment,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of, the general feel was like a bit of complacency as Bitcoin sort of dropped, sort of from 63K, and it just very slowly grinded down. Yeah, I don't know if it's just this time around, but I feel like um in the past we've seen like these really fast corrections, like capitulation, really fast corrections, and then you see like an obvious really long candle, a bunch of people get liquidated, and then we continue up at least, right?
Mm.
But I feel like the past sort of 4 days, it's been like you kind of found a bottom very slowly, and there wasn't this kind of like 20% drop in like 30 minutes and then it continues up. So we haven't seen that yet.
Mm.
Instead, it was like a really, really painful, slow grind down.
Mm.
Twitter gets really, really sort of negative, and then we continue up like slowly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's too early to tell, but I think you just have to take a big outlook. And I think over the next sort of next month or two, charts will look very different. It'll look very positive again.
Yeah, we had 12 weeks going sideways at the top, which, if we're being honest, that's really unique for Bitcoin. She's going to make all-time highs. They're usually big green candles and running. So it is kind of like a very, it's always after the fact, but wow, it's kind of during that. But when we say it's like a slow grind down, it was a slow grind sideways. And then 2 weeks was down 55% within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, 100%.
That's intense, sons. So that's pretty intense. But yeah, back to the goose shit. What are we talking about today? Mastery, huh?
Yeah, just mastery your craft and like, sort of just like pouring your hours and your energy and your focus into just a couple things rather than spreading yourself too thin on a lot of things. I know like I was watching I was watching what was it? Fuck, I've gone blank now. The one with Cardi. There's like a rap series on Netflix, Rhythm and Flow, with Cardi B and Chance the Rapper and T.I.
Oh, I think I've seen like a highlight or something.
Yeah. Anyway, so like the show basically is them going around different parts of the US, and each of them kind of recruit their little little clique of rappers, and they sort of compete together, and then through different rounds and activities they narrow it down to sort of one winner who takes home 250K. Anyway, like in the early stages there's this chick that, like, the judges ask what makes you different, yeah, or like what do you bring to the table, and she goes, I'm a stripper, I work 2 jobs, I rap, I hustle, I came up from this, I'm an entrepreneur. And Chance is just like, you do a lot of things, but are you good at any one of them? Like, and like it kind of goes like, I appreciate, like, the grind is the grind, right? But a lot of people who are struggling still make music their like number one thing, and you're competing against that. And I found that really interesting. It's kind of like, I thought in my own life how, I feel like I don't have time for photography, video editing, like, even to a degree, like when I really get into my fitness and stuff, it starts taking away time from, sort of focusing on marketing or hardcore or whatever. How about you? Like, have you felt at times in your life where you've had like good priorities, but they kind of conflict because you don't have enough time? Or
Yeah, I think especially when it's infinitely harder when you're like working, because you still have kind of responsibilities. You still have to go to work and that's like, it's a hard thing. Like there is no other way around it until you separate yourself from that. So your time is really, really constricted until you're allowed to, or have the ability to separate yourself from that job. So, which is difficult then, but it actually puts like a limit on what you think or what you can do, or what is important, what your priorities are, because, and it is a good thing, because then what happens is you focus on that one thing of separating yourself from that job.
Yeah.
All right. So we may be a little bit glitchy here, people, because the internet connection is unstable. So can you hear me all right, Mucky?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but we'll power on. I think it's okay now.
All right, cool. Sorry. All right, okay. Yeah, so I think the grind, when you have a job, your priorities should be focused, depending on what you want in life as well, because that's a whole conversation that is definitely involved in what we're talking about now. But it's like, depending on what you want, if you want more time to chase your kind of dreams, passions, focusing on one thing, then you need to separate yourself from your job so that you have more time. So having that job actually constricts your time, which is in some ways a good thing, because it allows you to focus on getting more time. So in the early days of the grind, like, I'm a big proponent of focusing on just the thing that's going to get you, to that first goal of separating time. And then once you have the time, then you can, go really hard on that one thing. that may be a little bit more of a passion of yours. But yeah, when it comes to like, say, let's use investing as a thing. Like there are going to be things that I enjoy more than investing. There's going to be things that I enjoy more than trading. There's going to be things I enjoy more than a lot of things I do. But you're going to have to see the value in that, and that can provide the time to be able to pursue those different ventures. If that,
Yeah,
does that make any sense?
So yeah, so I think you bring up a couple really good points, especially straight from the start when you talk about how if you have a full-time job, that's going to really impact how much time you spend on your craft. So assuming that your your day job or your full-time job isn't your passion or your main craft that you're working on, and everyone's circumstances are different. Some people know what their craft is, but that craft isn't generating their money yet, so it might not be practical for them to go all in on their craft. Um, they might have sort of expenses, and like it's just not practical for them because their craft doesn't make as much money as their day job. So I think there's that consideration, which is the first one. And for a lot of these people, it's just a matter of sort of spending the leftover time on their passion, but then also with the remaining time maybe not having too many hobbies or just focusing on one or two hobbies, and getting really good at that. So yeah, I think the all that the investing example that you used, how like there might be a couple other things that you kind of want to do more than investing, but investing sort of makes you money and you're good at it. That has been like your main focus, right?
Yeah, and it has to be to put myself in the position to then achieve that. Let's take a budding musician, okay? A young budding musician, he's 16, he's learning, or 17, he's learning that, this is really what he wants to do with the rest of his life.
Yeah.
All right. What would be, like, what's a more higher probability way of him being successful? Is it work a 9 to 5, scrape the way through life, and then spend whatever little time he has left, usually when he's tired as hell, so his creative juice is going to be lacking, to try and make music and to try and make it? Or instead of using that time to go on music, you understand that you want to do music, you go hard as hell at working at your 9 to 5 job and learning how to invest, pouring money into the stock market, that then makes you financially free, which means you have all your time back to go full head on into music. It's all about net hours put in. Like, you're not over a 10-year period. If you worked hard for 5 and got yourself financially free and then worked full time for 5 years, you're going to put more time into that craft than if you work periodically whilst having a 9 to 5 for 10 years. I could guarantee it 100%. 100%.
Yeah, well, you have to that the hours you need to put in won't change. It's just whether you're going to put in a little bit of hours over a long period of time, or you're going to sacrifice everything else and put a ton of time over a short period of time. But either way, like it's going to require a lot of work, a lot of hours, and it might be more sustainable to do it over a longer period of time. And I think with investing or doing something that makes money, you're doing it so you can give yourself space, so you don't have the pressure that's related to money, so you can work on your craft. But just be careful, because there's jobs out there that will kill your creativity, and after sort of like 6 years or 7 years grinding, you won't know what that passion is anymore.
Yeah. But Marky, this is where I reckon people get the like side hustle thing wrong. As they go so hard in their side hustle, trying to like replace their income, when it's like,
we're obsessed with this. We're obsessed with this side hustle, thing. Like,
she's actually a bunch of horse shit. Because for a lot of cases,
no, sorry, go on.
huh?
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, but like I really, really do believe like if someone has a side hustle and you want to do it, not like it's your passion, right? Or everyone says it's my passion, that's why I'm doing it. I want to make money from doing my passion. Okay, okay, okay. So you would do it if you didn't have any money at all. So you would do it if you literally didn't have to make money. Yeah. I'd do it if I didn't have money. Mate, you still have to pay bills. You still got all this kind of shit. So it means that you are literally, you have to make money from it or else you're screwed. Or you can do the smart option where you screw the side hustle for a little bit. You work your absolute rear off in a 9 to 5 job because it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're there for the money and for the skills that you're learning. That's it. You're there for those two things. So acquire as much of both of them as possible, pour it back into your investing, and then you can use those skills in your business, which is your passion, when you've got more time. I think people get it wrong when they try and do both things at once. They call it a side hustle. It's a crock of shit.
Yeah, I think yeah, trying to do both of them is real difficult. With with doing your passion, right, without the pressure of money, you're going to make better decisions, right? Whatever it is. Like, let's continue with the example of the budding musician. They might start out quite purist. They're doing what they love. They make the music that's true to them, and they keep the integrity of what they enjoy, right? But at some point, they get good enough where they can make some money, but then they realize that, and it doesn't always happen, but often it does, where they'll get tempted to do a different kind of music that they don't enjoy as much, but will make more money. So then they're faced with this decision of like, or the allure of doing the thing that makes money because they're struggling or their main gig isn't making them money. So that's the added benefit of, if you've got your finances in order, then it's much easier to make higher quality decisions that keep you down the path of creating what you want to create.
Yeah.
As an artist, yeah.
I think another part of mastery is like, there's a saying that to become a master in whatever you're doing, it takes 10,000 hours, right? We've all probably heard that. I don't know, I can't remember who it's from, but that the ability to put 10,000 hours into something means that you do have to enjoy it to a certain point, right? Which means you have to be self-aware enough to realize if you're going to be able to put in those 10,000 hours. So 10,000 hours is a long freaking time. That's a lot of grind. And kind of what I'm alluding to here is something we've spoken about before, but it's the dip. Like, you can get 3,000 hours in to studying that kind of thing, and then you're in the rut of your life and you have no idea where to go next. You have no idea what to learn next, how to do the next thing. But, continuously thinking about what is the next thing and doing it is how you're going to get through the dip, which then allows you to put more hours in. And then eventually you come up with some form of mastery, right? Yeah. But if you're not doing something that you're going to be able to get past that dip in, then there's no point, because you're just going to quit halfway. You're going to sink way too much money into something that's not going to work, and you're going to spend way too much time. It's all opportunity cost. But people don't do the thinking previous to it. They're just like, oh, I'm going to become a master at this because there's money in it, or because I'm passionate about it, because you've thought about it for 6 minutes. Bro.
Well, that's right. If you spend 10,000 hours trying to figure out how you're going to make money from your from your art or from music, then you probably head down the direction of making completely different music to what you would have otherwise done. And I think it's pretty widely accepted, that 10,000 hour rule. I'll tell you why. So some quick maths, so
get the pen out.
Over 10,000 hours over. So if you work 8 hours a day, 365 days, and you do that for 5 years, that works out to be exactly 10,000 hours. Now, look at yourself honestly. I think most people probably won't work a full 8 hours. They probably will, if it's a full-time thing, they're probably doing it over, they're probably working around 4 to 6 hours. So for most people, that translates to 10 years of working at one thing for until you actually become sort of like the top 2% in what you're doing. And when you become the very best in the world, that requires even more. It requires talent. It requires even more dedication than that. Some artists start as soon as they're sort of like 6 or 7 years old. So trying to catch up to Kobe Bryant as a basketballer now at 30, like forget about it.
Absolutely. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. But I don't know what you think about this, but that's the whole argument of like, oh, you can do anything and be anything in this world. It's like, okay, it's a good idea to tell kids that in the beginning because it allows them to think big. But you also need to balance it with some form of like realisticness.
There's a bell curve. Most people sort of sit in the sort of like that middle bit. Your goal should be to get into the top 10%. Once you get to the top 10%, you'll have a reasonable idea of whether you can be in the 1%. And for most people, when they get to that top 10%, they realize, okay, based on how long I've been working on it, based on, my edge and like what brings, sort of makes me good at my sport, my craft or whatever, I'll have a pretty good idea of whether I can be the very best, the top 1% or top 0.0, 5%. So I think the right advice is to work really, really fucking hard and make sure that like it's what you love, right? And have a really strong why. Get to the top 10%, and then you can decide whether it's a rest of your life thing, or is it I'm great, but outside of my circle that I'm comparing with, I'm never going to be the best sort of thing. So like if it's a bit like Call of Duty, right? Like in Victoria, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm top number 1. The minute you're like, you're top 1%, as soon as you go global, you're like, fuck, like I'm like number 10,000 now, like
yeah. I think the precursor to everything there though is also like to think previous to all of that. Like you don't want to work your ass off to get in the 10% and then realize, fuck, I'm not going to make the top 1%. Like I think previous to getting in the top 10%, it's actually relatively obvious. It's hard to see for yourself because you have your own bias, but that's why it's so important to put the right people around you so that they can be like, hey, I'm sorry, bro, but you're not Kobe, rest in peace and shit. But you're just
rest
not
in peace and shit.
You're like, dude, when Kobe, you know where I was when Kobe died? I was in Bali in a resort called Wapa de Ume. And this is like a top tier resort. It was like really fucking beautiful. So nice. I remember waking up, it was like 4 a.m. there to a notification of my little brother texting me saying, dude, Kobe died. And I was genuinely upset. I was like, it's interesting. Like I didn't watch basketball that much, but, and I was in one of the most beautiful places in the world. No reason to be upset, but just like what I feel like what he resembled. And it kind of got me. I was like, damn, that's crazy.
Well, he's got the maturity. He represents, the guy that outworks everyone. So like, this idea that yes, talent plays a really big role, but there are people out there that just put in way more hours than anyone else, and that's why they're the best. And that's what Kobe kind of represented.
Yeah.
You always hear stories about him getting up at like 4 a.m. and like, if he's meeting with his coach and he's got a game the next day, he's only sleeping like 4 hours. He'll get out there and get like 1,000 shots in like, before a game starts.
So many stories of him like just doing all of that kind of stuff, and he's very inspirational. Was a very inspirational man, but he's intense. But it's obvious for a very long time that he was going to be one of the best.
Yeah,
it's obvious, right? And for a lot of people, we wrap our identity around something that we're doing and have that sunk cost bias where it's like, oh, I can't change because I put this much of effort in, or I've told this many people I'm going to do something, or, I've sunk this much money in, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, if it's not right for you, the only mistake you made was, not doing the thinking previous to that. Just quit. Stop. Just stop. Like it's definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If you're simply not going to get through that dip, don't do it. Just quit. Just quit. Start something new, but this time think through that thing before you start it. Like how many bloody, like, what's a massive thing at the moment? Drop shipping still is huge.
Yeah.
Everyone sees an Instagram ad literally marketed straight towards them. It's like, hey, become a dropshipper today, buy my course. And it's like, it's not that person's fault, but they're looking for a way out. And they don't do the thinking because they haven't been taught to do the thinking. So they just jump into that thing straight away. And then to become a master at dropshipping, let's just say you have to spend that 10,000 hours, you're not going to make it. But then to be master at dropshipping, or just, dropshipping is a form of business, you have to understand business. And all business books I've read are okay, but they're the best investing books are the best business books. So you have to understand investing, then business, then realize that dropshipping is not even, there's no point to it because there's a race to the bottom. So it's like, there's a lot of levels. And if people just did the thinking and did the work to understand the foundations of how everything works, there will be a lot less pain because people wouldn't make those bad decisions and put themselves in bad positions. So they really just focus on the one thing or the things that they're passionate about and have the ability to get through the dip in. Was that a rant?
No, I kept thinking self-awareness, right? As you're talking about this. So it's, what Daniel is saying, like not to sort of not to aim high, right? He's saying think clearly, have self-awareness to know whether you have what it takes to stick out whatever you're trying to get the best at and actually like stick it out. So I think you take a lot of risk early on, and if people around you tell you that, hey, you're actually really good at this, and you're hearing that often, then it probably means you have a chance. But if you're working your ass off and you're not really getting any recognition, or like you don't have honest feedback from people around you, then maybe it's not your thing. And like I think a sign that you're on the right path is when you've got people really close to you being able to tell you, hey, you're actually really good at this, but then they also say, but you're not doing this, that's holding you back. And if you get a lot of that, then you probably have a chance. But if people just kind of tell you you're great, then it probably means you're great, or they're just like razzing you a bit.
here's a like an honest and a realistic thing. Like when it comes to investing and trading, I'm very open about this. Like I didn't create the way Hardcore invests, the way Hardcore trades. Like I didn't create any of that. That was taught to me. And I can say this out loud that if I had to go through the last decade of trying to work out our own system, trying to work out how everything works, I don't think I would have made it. That's not me. I honestly do not think for the last decade I could have stayed through the dip and put so many hours into that. I needed someone to filter that for me and give it to me because I don't think I would have made it through. So to have that kind of person, Dylan, that's amazing. But there are other things that for me, I'm definitely going to be able to stick through because I'm very passionate about it, like sales, a few other things. All right. But it's like, be self-aware enough, right? Like Dylan fills in that gap for me. Like, dude, I'm simply not good enough. Like, there's no way, Marky, I'm being 100% honest here. There is absolutely no way I'm making it. I really believe that because I saw what he went through and I don't think I was capable of getting past that dip in that specific thing. Now that's past tense. I must be honest. That is past tense of like realizing, probably, and that comes with wisdom and learning and understanding the foundations of things. And now I realize that, right? Worked it out a while ago, but yeah, the point is to come to that realization previous to actually doing it.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with people that can help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if you find someone that has, been able to replicate some sort of success in what you're trying to do, that's going to be your shortcut to getting similar results, right? Where that person is, sort of now is potentially where you can expect to be in like 3 to 5 years. I mean, in Dylan's case, like he's like a god. So when it comes to trading, so it might take a little bit longer. But
Yesterday we were, to be fair, he'd already watched it, right? Or a certain part of it. But yesterday we were watching this video as a team, as Hardcore. We were watching this video on Nvidia, the company itself. And
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but a majority of what the hell was happening was going over our heads.
yeah.
Like, no idea. And then he just comes out and goes, "Oh, it means this, 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 and this." I'm like, he didn't say any of those words. How the fuck did you get that?
Yeah.
But it's that how do I say this? It's all those foundational work that allows them to come to that. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
which is a bit
one
different
one
from what we're
thing.
talking about.
Yeah, one thing that sort of strikes me different about Dylan is his critical thinking. So he's always kind of looking at, okay, this is what's being said, but what's actually happening, and like he always kind of looks for the missing piece of information that kind of that might be sort of misrepresented, or maybe like there's an opportunity that's a lot bigger than like people realize. And he's always looking for those edges, and it probably comes from his, yes, in his trading, but that mentality sort of shifts to when he's consuming content. He's kind of looking for, what's a bit different, what's a point of view that I haven't heard before, and like sort of deep diving into that a bit more.
Yeah, question everything. Question
He's just
everything.
curious. He's just curious as fuck.
Curious and inquisitive. That's one thing that you two guys share. That you're curious and inquisitive about many things. Is something I've had to work on and learn, because
I think we all do. I think that's what kind of brings a lot of a lot of us at Hardcore Headstart together. We share that kind of mindset of what else can we learn? How can we make things different? How can we be part of the metaverse?
No, I think that's hilarious. Someone said it yesterday, but it's good to repeat it. It's like, a lot of what we do at Hardcore is different to everyone else in the world. Like, we have differing point of views. Sometimes they're big and loud and hot takes. Sometimes they're actually just common sense, but no one's had the thought. Like, a lot of what we do here is actually different and seems and gets ostracized in the beginning because it's not understood. But we pour as much information or as much work into making sure that thought or that thing that we say out loud is correct, so that historically we're going to be right.
Yeah. I think a little bit like how we look to Gary Vee of like, hey, yeah, he called these things right early on these platforms. I think, once people get exposed to Hardcore Headstart over time, we'll become those people that, people look to, and they see as like, hey, these guys were talking about Bitcoin for ages, and then they were talking about Ethereum for ages, and now they're talking about NFTs, and they're talking about Nvidia chips, and we then become, the guys that are sort of looking for the trends that are changing and like shaping our world, like through technology. So, we're still early in our way, but I think that's where we'll be.
It's an interesting thing to think, like, sometimes the people having those conversations or thinking bring those things into the world, because it's the act of actually talking about it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That makes sense. It's like the act of thinking and doing about it actually brings it into the world. Yeah. So it's like, and the more people who start thinking and go on the train, then more people start working on those things, and et cetera, et cetera. But not to paint us like gods and shit like that, because we're definitely not. But it's like, sometimes we just try to understand as many different things as possible, because I was actually speaking about with my partner with Shazer last night. So I was like, at the moment, literally my job and for my life, I think the one constant is just going to be like studying and just learning new things, and try and make them as relevant to kind of the big picture as possible.
Yeah.
Just
100%.
learning new things.
Being a student in life, I think being interested in people is a big thing too, because having that curiosity in what other people are doing, and not sort of like being shaped by how things are done by the same five people that you hang around all the time. So on I think like one of the great things about Hardcore Headstart is you've got everyone who's mastering their craft, and we share a lot in common, but we also have little aspects of our lives that we do a bit differently, and we kind of learn from each other. Like we kind of like, hey, Dylan does this, or like Chrissy Limper does music, and hey, this is what Samir does with video editing. This is what Mark does with break dancing. No, just, just, just kidding. But like, you know what I mean? Like we kind of
Yeah.
observe how we do things together, like investing, but we also observe like, our hobbies outside of investing and how each person tackles that. So a
Yeah,
lot to learn there.
absolutely. And they don't have to make sense to each other, but they're going to make sense to someone else.
Mm,
That's the thing about hobbies, bro.
100%.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. But people don't get enough time to chase down those things because they don't put the work in early, which
Mm.
is sometimes a hard thing for people to hear. But I am honest, if I am anything.
That's it. What do you think about sort of um, what do you think about like the framework in terms of deciding when to sort of give up on a craft or not? Do you think like, should you ask the people around you, or because like a lot of people sort of say you have to be you have to believe in yourself before anyone else believes in you, but then that can take you down the wrong path if you sort of stick it for too long and you realize you're not any good.
Mm.
Um, so what could be a framework that people can use to navigate, whether they should stick something out or maybe it's time to turn a leaf and try something new?
Yeah, I think the beginning is still like thinking and creating that. Like, listen, if it's a business, for example,
Mm,
how much time have you spent on that business? Because what people don't understand is Hardcore Headstart's been around for 10 years,
mm,
almost a decade now. This is not new, and it's not been
mm,
thought about for 6 minutes and just kept on with. Like, the plan itself has been built and built and built. It's something that we all think about continuously, like all the time,
mm,
right? People have that conversation of, are you obsessed? But not so much towards that. And just like, does it withstand, the time of your thinking? Like, did you think about it for 6 months and then you had a new idea? Sorry, like 6 days and then you had a new idea? Or do you think about it for a month? Or do you think about it for 3 months? Think about it for a whole year? Have you built the whole business plan out and then found every little missing link and every potential mistake and every hole? Have you solved all those problems yet? Are because for a lot of times for people, they'll think about an idea, they'll execute, and then in 6 months, they couldn't give a flying fuck about it anymore.
mm,
It's like, maybe just think about it for 6 months, try and fix all the holes, make sure you are obsessed or very interested about it. And then if you're still thinking about it and still trying to fix those holes within 6 months, and you can fix all the holes, like those holes are fixable, there's not one massive thing that like, oh, well, that's going to ruin the entire business, then maybe you start pursuing that thing.
mm.
But just jumping in and not, really thinking about it, like I said, it's opportunity cost. You're going to cost yourself a lot of time and a lot of money. I think that could be the
Yeah.
beginning of the framework.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that will save a lot of people heartache, sort of, or like rushing into something feeling like they're sort of heading there quicker, but
Mm,
not necessarily.
yeah.
Uh, a lot of chippies, a lot of carpenters, a lot of tradespeople use the saying, measure twice, cut once. So it's like, put just as much thought and time into your plan and your self evaluation of, you know, how you can approach things to your strengths, or conversely, what are the things in your character that will be weaknesses in sort of like potentially holding you back from achieving what you need to do.
Mm,
So I guess, yeah, everything you said is like you hit the nail on the head. Maybe only thing adding to it is, you know to be to spend just as much time being self-aware and like how of time. So yes, I still love doing what I'm doing, even years into the process. And then you also have to look at it from, am I progressing at the rate that I want to be progressing? If the answer again is yes, you turn to your circle of people who achieve, you know, your highest achievers, and ask them, do you think I'm any good at what I'm doing? If the answer again is yes, keep going. But if it's no, then you
Mm.
might need to ask some more questions and evaluate where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think is it Seth Godin or maybe Tim Ferriss or something like that? Like if you do get past that 6 months and you have maybe it's a product or a service or something like that, start with your 10 friends around you, see if there is interest. Start small. You don't have to go out and do it crazy. You want to, people always think you have to take this massive, massive risk, but you never want to put yourself in a position where you have to take, a Hail Mary. You want to be as safe as possible all the time. So start small and just slowly build and build and build and build. But yeah, that's probably my 2 cents.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there
That's
any
that's
times in your
awesome.
life? Is there any times in your
I
life when you
think
haven't done that thinking?
I think the uh, like sometimes I'm so like in the thick of it that I just I and probably more recently because I've picked up more things. I
Mm,
I don't spend as much time, either meditating or maybe just taking a step back, doing nothing, so my brain has like some space to evaluate like how everything's going. So
mm,
um, it's like this idea of, if you've got like if you're really good at juggling and you've been juggling like 5 balls in the air for a long time, you could probably keep doing it, but you don't have like, there's this constant pressure of like, you got to stay really focused. But if you kind of take 1 or 2 balls out for a while and you're just juggling 3 balls, you've got a bit more time before each ball kind of drops, and you
mm.
can kind of think about, hey, you know, this isn't heading in the right direction, or maybe I should try something a bit different. So the problem when you take on too much is you can manage it potentially, but the creativity goes out the door and you start doing things exactly the same day in and day out.
Mm.
So that's one thing I found I needed to be careful about. So
Yeah. Well, it's like in the thing of like, when you're doing so many things, you're taking time and energy away from that other thing.
mm,
Right. I've done it so many times. It's like, if you're trying to focus on too many things, you're not gonna be able to do anything right.
mm. You've got a 12-volt charger. You've got like 6 light bulbs. If you connect them to every light bulb, she's just dispersed, like,
Yeah.
Whereas
She's
you
all
got like two
flickering.
light bulbs. Yeah, she's all flickering. It's a good analogy there. I think some solid advice from people who, have achieved great things is, like, if you just kind of focus on 1 or 2 things for uh a period of like 6 months, a year, you'll achieve a lot more. And you'll also have the self-awareness to go, okay, that didn't work, and at least that's sort of out of your mind. You're like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Whereas like, if you do 5 6 things, then you might kind of make very slow progress, but you haven't gone that deep, so you don't know if you want to go deeper, but you're just moving very slowly in 5 different directions.
And then you
So
apply one of the principles from essentialism on top of that, of picking
mm,
the 1 or 2 most important things, or things that can implement the largest amount of change. What's the
mm,
domino that can, once you solve that, flick over all the other dominoes?
100%,
Focus
the
on
law of
those
the
one or
vital
two things.
fuse.
Hmm.
Yeah, and because you say no to something now doesn't mean it's a no forever. It
Yeah.
just means that you're going to shift your focus onto, out of all the options you have, you just focus on a couple, see where that goes,
Hmm.
and then you can, come back to it. A bit like Chrissy G with the investing and, his music. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean he's going to give up music,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. That's
he's
the
he's
perfect one.
focusing on investing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's necessary. If you want to know more about that story, go to the Hang with Hardcore podcast and find which one it is, because I do not know. Which one is it? Shit. I
we'll
will.
we'll put a link in the description.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good man. I can't remember which one it is. So, have you got anything else?
Now, I think that's pretty much a wrap. But hopefully you guys got some value out of it. Our main message here is to sort of stick things out, but then also have self-awareness to figure out whether it's something that is worthy of mastering your craft and being honest about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and in regards to mastery, we probably didn't talk about enough, but there is a singular documentary that stands above all. It's called Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Yes, yes.
That is a banger.
You
We're going to
know,
make sure we say that. Go and watch it.
yeah, done.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. So it's like free. Go and watch it.
Let's put a link for that too. So two things:
Okay.
link to Chrissy G and link to Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Perfect. All right, all. What are the good stuff we say? Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Click the notification bell so you can know when we're uploading.